Hello and welcome to another video on Inkscape, a free open source vector graphics editor. To learn where you can download a copy and how to use it, click on the link in the top right hand corner of the screen. If you find this video helpful, then help us by giving a like and subscribing to the channel. Remember to hit the bell icon so you're notified when we release new videos. You can also help us with the YouTube algorithm by saying hi or leaving a comment. So in this video I want to take a look at snapping. Snapping is just an easy way we can align our objects in our images. If we go over to the right hand side, we've got our snapping menu. If we enable it by clicking the top button, we have subsections. And each subsection has its own enable button at the top. So the first section we got is snapping to boundary boxes. Next section down is snapping to nodes, paths and handles. We've then got snapping to other points such as rotational centers and text. And then we've got a little miscellaneous section at the bottom, which includes snapping to pages, snapping to grids and snapping to guides. So if we turn on our first section, snapping boundary boxes, we've got a little sub menu underneath. We've got snapping to boundary box edges, we've got snapping to boundary box corners, snapping to boundary box midpoints and snapping to boundary box centers. So if we turn on snapping to edges and snapping to corners, if we draw out a couple of shapes, so we quickly draw out a rectangle and we draw out an oval, change the colour of that, and we get our selection tool. With corners enabled and edges enabled, we should be able to take our oval and snap it to the edge. So here we've got the corner, which is snapping to the edge of our boundary box. If we take it down, it will snap corner to corner, like so. What are our options? We've got midpoints. And so now if we take them together, we can snap midpoints together, which is quite nice for aligning objects. We can snap to midpoints so we know they're perfectly aligned. We've also got snapping to center points. So if we take that up, we can snap to the boundary box center points. The next section down on the right hand side, if we enable snapping to nodes, paths and handles, in here we've got snapping to paths, we've got snapping to path intersections, so where paths cross. We've got snapping to cusp nodes. Cusp nodes are just corner nodes. We've got snapping to smooth nodes, so these are nodes on a nice smooth curve. And we've got snapping to midpoint of a line section. So to get started, we start with snapping to path. So if we move our circle out, I'll get my Bezier tool for this one. If we come in close, actually I'll start up here and drag a line down, it will snap to the edge of my shape. So this is snapping to the path. So we can click there and we know we're touching the path. So the next one down on our list is snapping to path intersections. So if we click this on, an intersection is where two paths cross, so we need a point where they cross. So if we take this and stick it across the path of the circle, we should now be able to snap to the point where they cross. There we go. So we're now snapping to the intersection of the paths. We've got cusp nodes, so this is corners. So if we turn off our boundary boxes, so now we should better take a path and snap it to the cusp node or corner of our rectangle. Next one down is smooth nodes. So if we took our line, get our nodes tool, and we just double click to add a node in there. So it's a node but it's on a straight line, so it's a smooth node. So we should be able to now snap to that. So if we get our selection tool, we can move it over and we can snap it to the smooth node. Next one down is snap to midpoints. So if we draw out we'll draw our rectangle. We grab our other rectangle and we snap to the midpoint of the lines. So after that, we've got the last of the sections that we can enable, which is other points. So this is center points, rotational centers, and text. So the first one is centers. So we can just, if we enable centers, we can snap to the centers and align objects that way. Rotational centers, we can snap to rotational centers. So if we move an object over, if we click it twice, we get our rotation handles and our rotational center. Our rotational center can be moved, so we can put our rotational center at any point. We can then take another object and we can snap it to that rotational center. Handy thing to know about rotational centers is if you've moved your rotational center and you want to put it in the center of your object again, if you just hold down Shift and click it, it'll pop it back to the center of the object. What else have we got? Text. So if we click write a bit of text, we get our selection tool and shrink that down. So with text, we have an anchor point, which is the little white dot you've got off to the bottom left hand corner of your text. We can use that to snap to other objects. But what we can't do is snap to the baseline when we're moving the text around. But if we take another object and move it up towards the base of our text, it will snap to the text baseline. So we can snap objects to the text baseline, but we can't move the text and snap to the baseline. The last little miscellaneous section we've got at the bottom of our snapping menu is page. So if we zoom out, we can snap to page. This is handy if you want to do a background. You can grab your rectangle tool and just snap to the corners of your page and fill it in. What else have we got? Grid. For snapping to grid to work, you need the grid to be visible. So if you go up to View, down to Page Grid, you can turn the grid on. You can then snap to the grid points and draw an image. If you want to change the spacing in your grids, you can go up to File, down to Document Properties, and under the grid menu you've got a few options available to you. You can change the spacing. You've got minor and major grid colours. So our major grid lines are 5 apart. So at the bottom here we've got spacing, which is 5. You may find that only your major ones, if you're zoomed too far out, you'll only be able to see the major grid lines. If you zoom in, your minor grid lines become visible. You can also change it to dots instead of grid lines. And you've got the units of the grids. So the last button in our menu is snapping to guides. For this we need our guides, which we can drag down from the top. We can snap the origin to different points. We can drag guides in from the sides and snap them. We can also drag in from the top corner, we can drag in a 45-degree guide, which we can also snap using our origin. So with our guides in position, we can take our shape and we can snap it to our guides. What we can also do, say we wanted to line the bottom up with our guide, we could snap the corner here on, then we can double click it to get our rotation handles. Let's move this down so we can see it. We need to move our rotational center to the bottom. We can then rotate it round and it should snap Cusp node to guide. So now we're perfectly lined up with our guideline. The last thing I want to take a look at is if we go up to File, down to Document Properties, we have a tab for snapping. If we click on this, this has got a few different options we can change to affect the behaviour of how things snap. The first section, snap to objects, we can make it so we can always snap to an object. So at this point, wherever you are, it will try and snap you to an object. We've got snapping when closer than, and it gives you a snapping distance. At the moment it's set to 20 pixels. Now this is 20 screen pixels and not 20 pixels on your image. So for example, where we're zoomed out on this shape, when I get close enough, you'll see it snap. So at that point it snaps. We're 20 screen pixels away there. So if I now zoom right in, we still have to get 20 screen pixels away. So on here, I've got to get right in close before it'll snap. So it snaps at that point. So just remember, this is screen pixels and not pixels in your actual image. Other options we got are snapping to clipping path and snapping to mask path. I haven't covered those yet. I'll cover those in another video. We've got similar things for snapping to grids, snapping to guides, and we've got a miscellaneous section down the bottom. So this is snap perpendicular and snap tangentially. So if I zoom back out a little bit, so we'll enable both of these for a second. So snapping, let's zoom out, let's draw a oval. So if we get our Bezier tool, we draw a line. So we can now snap, we can snap to our path, but as we move it around, it'll snap tangentially. A tangent is a line that touches a shape at just one point. We can draw snap perpendicularly. So now we've got this line, we want it to hit this one at a perpendicular angle, so it's a right angle where it joins. So at that point it snaps perpendicular. So those two options are very useful, and you can only find them in Document Properties. I hope this has been useful, and I shall see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.